This is The Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral.com.
Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa, Internet world, West Alabama. How we doing today on this Friday? It is the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central and BamaCentral.com. I am hanging out with you live in the Derek Daniel State Farm Studios. You are watching us on the Bama Central YouTube channel. You're listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Amazon. Gonna have a lot of fun here on a Friday. A solo show today. No Mason Woods. Mason Woods is off doing some family time, doing a little vacation, and really celebrating a member of their family as they've passed away. So he is out of town for the weekend, and you're stuck with me by myself. You can find me at Joe Gaither6 on the social media machines. Leave me a comment, a question, a query, or a complaint. We'll be happy to get you involved in the show today. We obviously recognize this is a little later than we're usually doing the show, but here we go. It's Friday. Alabama's playing LSU on Saturday. Going to be a big weekend. What do I have on tap for the conversation today? I want to talk about Alabama's game against the LSU Tigers. I want to look at all of the SEC basketball games on Saturday. A-Day was announced. Not really going to make a whole lot about the 8-day date. Just going to talk about when that is and get you ready for that. And then I want to finish with Josh Pate's power rankings, not polls, not a final poll, but power rankings. You can find that on the social media machine. I guess it's Late Kick Josh. He does his great football program, college football program for CBS on their YouTubes and all that stuff. But he put out his final power rankings, which if you're familiar with him, it's not really a poll. It's more like who might beat who on a neutral field at the end of the day. And so I want to look at that because he has Alabama ranked much higher than I think a lot of people might expect. But let's start with Alabama basketball. And before we do, we need to, of course, acknowledge that we are live in the Derek Daniel State Farm Studios. Derek Daniel can be found right here off of McFarland Boulevard in Northport, just past the Tiger Rock on the left. You can find him and get a hold of all of his employees, Red Reese and Victoria, at 205-758-3391. They'll be happy to take care of you, answer all of your insurance questions, get you going on any questions, home, life, auto insurance, renter's insurance. That can be found right there, Derek Daniel State Farm Insurance. 205-758-3391. Like a good neighbor, Derek Daniel is there. Call and see how much Derek can save you today. All right, let's get right into it. Let's start with the biggest thing that you're looking forward to this weekend, or that I am looking forward to this weekend. Alabama is back in Coleman Coliseum on Saturday against the LSU Tigers. You've got yourself on a nice little win streak now, Alabama, 2 in a row after your embarrassment last Tuesday night, well, 2 Tuesday nights now against the Ole Miss Rebels. You're now 4-5-1 in conference play, 5-1 in conference play, and you're taking on a bottom dweller in a primetime position. Hopefully, everybody gets into Coleman Coliseum on Saturday night. The tip-off is really, really conducive for a good crowd. It's going to be 7:30 on SEC Network for the out-of-towners. But if you are in town, 7:30, go ahead and have your Saturday, do your family stuff, get your to-do list done, get over to Coleman Coliseum. Go ahead and just make it in your head a 7 o'clock tip-off. That way you're there and ready and juiced up to take on the LSU Tigers. And obviously, it should be a game that Alabama is very much expected to win. The line is not quite out yet, as they do with college basketball, but Alabama, I'm going to expect to be about a 12 to 13-point favorite. And I think that really everything lines up for you to continue to be successful. Coach Nato is talking today that really what he wants to see out of his team is a full 40 minutes. 40 minutes on defense, 40 minutes on both ends of the floor. He said, we've seen some 40 minutes of effort, but really terrible taking care of the basketball, probably referencing that Ole Miss game, because I think the effort was still pretty high in that basketball. Well, just the attention to detail. And the rebound was pretty horrible too. But okay, so you move forward. Coach wants to see 40 minutes. This is a team you should beat. This team is what, 1-4 in the SEC. All they have beaten is lowly Arkansas. They end up beating Arkansas 78-74 at home, and Coach Cal, I mean, they're just off the rails, not playing very well at all. What are they? 1-5 in the conference as well. So they're second to last, the Arkansas Razorbacks. But the LSU Tigers are third to last. They're right there 1-4 with Oklahoma, just above Arkansas and South Carolina. They're going to come in here, decent guard play. Who do I have? Cam Coleman, not Cam Coleman. Goodness gracious, that's not his name. I keep flipping from different tab to tab to tab. His name is Cam Carter. Excuse me, not Cam Coleman, the wide receiver from Auburn. Cam Carter is the guard, is their best guard. Still averaging almost 18 points a game, 4 rebounds, almost 3 assists, 1.5 steals. He's shooting 40% from beyond the three-point line. And you've seen Alabama so far this season really have a mixed bag with elite scorers. You have allowed Ace Bailey and Ron Harper's son, goodness gracious, to go off on you with Rutgers. You have allowed Trace and Eaglestaff to go off on you with North Dakota State. But really, I mean, the last couple of games, you fared fairly well against the other team's primary scorer. So that's going to be your focus. Cam Carter, shutting down Cam Carter. It sounds like Darian Reed is going to be a game time decision with kind of leaning towards out. Game time decision, likely not going to play, is what it sounded like from Coach Oates today. Hasn't really gone in full practice yet. Going to go kind of warm it up on Saturday morning and see if he can get going. Houston Mollett seems like it's leaning towards holding him out for the medical red shirt to get him out, get him back next year. It sounds like Coach Oates was talking about, if you get him out right now, there's still no guarantee that he's going to be at 100% with his knees, and there's only half of the conference games left. There's a little bit more than that. You played 6. There's 18 or so. You played almost half of the conference games. He says, I don't know if it's really worth it to him. Obviously, you want to maximize Houston Mollett's time here. You want to do what's best for his career. So it sounds like you're going to be down those 2 guys again tomorrow night. Shouldn't be an issue. Shouldn't be an issue against this LSU team. LSU is going to rebound the basketball fairly well, averaging 39 rebounds a game to Alabama's 44. Now they are averaging 10 fewer points, 79 points a game to Alabama's 90. Now they're playing a little bit better defense, but they're also playing much slower. A little bit better defense on a points against average, but when you break it down analytically, Alabama is playing slightly better defense. LSU giving up 69 points a game, Alabama 78. But you flip it over to Mr. Kenny Pomeroy, and you see that LSU is way down in tempo. Where are you at right there? Adjusted tempo, 130. To Alabama's number 1 in the country. So I think that Alabama, everything is lining up for you right here to get to a 3-game win streak, get into next week. Next week's going to be much more difficult for the Crimson Tide. You take on at Mississippi State, and then you have Georgia at home on Saturday, and Georgia has looked to be pretty formidable. I mean, nothing to take lightly. We'll say that. Nothing to take lightly, getting a good win over Kentucky and being really, really feisty so far this season. So, much tougher week next week at Mississippi State and Georgia at home. Really, really got to take care of business tonight against the LSU Tigers. And I think it's going to be, on Saturday against the LSU Tigers. I think it's going to be a great opportunity for Alabama to do that. I mean, you look at LSU. They haven't really played hardly anyone of note all season long. Their schedule, I mean, come on. We got UL Monroe, Alabama State, Kansas State. Okay, that's a decent win. Kansas State, UCF. Okay, you lost to SMU. You lost to Vandy, Missouri, Ole Miss. You lost to A&M. I mean, we can't talk about a loss to Ole Miss. We did as well. But there's not really a whole lot going on for the second-year head coach. What is your name, LSU? What is his name? The second-year head coach for LSU basketball coach, obviously took over for Will Wade. Matt McMahon, yes, thank you. Matt McMahon, and he came in from Missouri Valley. Is that where he came in from? Ohio Valley Conference. He read Murray State. That's right. So he's in his second year, slow going in an extremely, extremely competitive league. I think that Alabama, look, It's going to be basically a maturity test, period. Are you mature enough to not look at the standings, not look at, we're favored by 15, and just come out there, give them the first half punch? I mean, I've been pretty pleased with the first half punches that you have seen so far, particularly at home, but you cannot come out of that second half and just cruise. I mean, I guess you could cruise and probably beat this team. I think that's, in the cards for tomorrow night. The Alabama gets up big and probably cruises to victory. But what you want to see out of this team is an attention to detail, a hunger, a fire that says, hey, it doesn't matter what the halftime score is. Yeah, we're up by 20. Let's go win by 40 because we approach the second half the exact same way. I think this team's perfectly capable of doing that, but especially against a team like LSU, who's going to be kind of guard focused and just, still kind of lacking an identity. If we're perfectly honest, I think from an LSU standpoint, not really any standout players as far as the upper echelons of the league. I think Alabama's going to win. Do we think that the Crimson Tide will clear 100 points for the third game in a row? You know what? I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say yes because I think that Coach Oates is going to continue to hammer the tempo, and I think he's going to continue to manipulate the shots. Not per se that he's manipulating on the sidelines, but who he's playing and how the team has kind of adapted and evolved so far this season. I think you're starting to see the better three-point shooters, the Youngbloods, the Sears, the Holloways, really, really take the majority of the shots. I mean, you'd love to have Latrell Wrightsell in that mixture, but take the majority of the shots. You throw in a little bit of LeBaron, you throw in a little bit of Jaron Stevenson, a little bit of Grant, like these other, like the second-tier shooters. Maybe their shots go down just a little bit from beyond the arc. But other than that, they're hammering the glass. They're getting into the paint, and they're hammering the other team inside. I think that this team is continuing to grow. I mean, particularly offensively. I know you have a lot more room to grow defensively, but I think the offense in margins is growing as far as the shot selection and who's taking the shot, where the ball is, and confidence coming down the floor with different combinations of the lineup. So I do think Alabama is going to clear another 100 points tomorrow night. What are we going to think? We're going to think Alabama's going to go 1-0. How about it? 107. Oof. Would that be the highest number this year? No, 107 against Oklahoma. You were 105 against South Dakota State. You had 100 against Illinois and 110 against UNC Asheville. So I'm going to go back to 107, and I'm going to go 107. Oh, my gosh. I mean, LSU not scoring the ball great. She's scoring almost 80 points a game. 107, 87, that's 20. 107.90. How about that? 107.90 is what I think that Alabama is going to do in Coleman Coliseum on Saturday. 107-90. We're going to look for Mark Sears to continue his great play at point guard, scoring at an extremely high clip, getting the ball to the right places. 12 or fewer turnovers, and you've cruised to a victory. 12 or fewer turnovers, hammer the offensive glass, 9 or more offensive rebounds. You got to get to the free throw line and make them at a good clip. It's still been a struggle this year. I would love to see that team free throw percentage get up to that 76, 78% as you continue on in this season. Another big one. I mean, look, you should win it. This should be a game that nobody really talks about after. Nobody looks back on the season and talks about because, okay, it was a game that it was set up for you to lay it up and knock it down. But they will talk about it. We will talk about it. If you drop it, who knows what's going to happen with Ole Miss the rest of the year? Obviously, they look like they're going to be fine and going to be bouncing back, but they don't look like they're going to be, 4-2 so far. So they've dropped a couple of games since then. Ole Miss might be a team where it's like, that's not a bad loss. And ultimately, LSU is not a bad loss either. If you lose it, they're 66 in KenPom. So it's not a horrible loss, but it's definitely a bad loss if you look at it through the lens of your goals of the season. The goals of the season are win the SEC regular season, get you a good seed, ideally the number 1 seed in Nashville, and win the tournament, win the SEC tournament, and win the whole dang thing all the way out in San Antonio. But losing to Ole Miss doesn't derail that. Losing to LSU does. Losing to LSU at home absolutely does. So it's an important night for Alabama basketball as they continue their time. They got a home game on Saturday, and then they're going to be on the road midweek. You guys can drive over there to Starkville to see them take on Mississippi State. You can let me know in the comment section what you think Alabama will do on Saturday. Do you have Alabama winning? Who will score the most points for the Crimson Tide? Will we see the off-road package, the Mohamed Diabate package? Those are kind of my questions going into Saturday night. Really, outside of just the mentality, the defensive mentality. Can you play defense for 40 bleeping minutes? Defense with an edge. I don't care what the offensive defense with an edge for every possession. I think the Coleman crowd really responds when you do play good defense, and so we'll see what happens tomorrow night in Coleman Coliseum. We'll be there for BamaCentral.com. I won't be working the game, actually. We'll have Katie Wyndham. We'll have Hunter Cypher and Will Miller working the game, and you can read all about it at Bama Central and BamaCentral.com. That'll be at 7:30 on Saturday night, SEC Network. But Saturday's a huge slate for the SEC and the SEC standings, particularly also at 7:30. I mean, how are we going to do this, ESPN? How are we going to do this? We're going to have Alabama-LSU at 7:30, but we're going to have Tennessee at Auburn at 7:30 as well on ESPN. Can we not get the matinee? I mean, look, I'm not going to be foolish enough to say that Alabama-LSU would be a bigger game than Tennessee at Auburn. So just give Alabama the matinee. Let's play at 11. Let's play at 2. Let's play at 3. Whatever we want to do. So we're all home in front of our couches to watch Tennessee at Auburn. All right, so we start the day noon. Mississippi State is at South Carolina. South Carolina looking for its first SEC win of the season. We will say it still eludes them. And Mississippi State wins, building some momentum going into next week's game against Alabama. Continuing 1:30, Kentucky is at Vanderbilt. I think Kentucky's just got a little too much talent than the Commodores, so I'm taking Kentucky again. 1:30 also on ESPN2. Texas A&M is at Texas. Brutal rivalry. We'll take the home team. Texas, right there, just for the fun of it. Georgia is at Florida. I think Florida is probably going to get them, despite the good basketball that Georgia has been playing. Ole Miss is at Missouri. Ole Miss looking to avoid 3 losses in a row. And I'll say they don't do it. I'll think Missouri's going to get them. Tennessee is at Auburn. Goodness gracious, we hate it, but we will take Auburn to win and stay on top of the league. And then as well at 7:30, you got 3 games all right there. Oklahoma is at Arkansas. They're going to be on ESPN2. So big night of basketball, big day of basketball. If you are into the SEC, we will see where the standings lie after Saturday. Alabama still sitting there, tied for second in the standings. Let's see. Yeah, right there. It's tied for second, 5-1. You got Florida, Tennessee, Missouri, Texas A&M, and Ole Miss all at 4-2, sitting there 1 game behind the Crimson Tide. Which game are you most looking forward to on Saturday? You can let us know, obviously, right there in the comments section as we're hanging out here in the Derek Daniels State Farm Studios. We're missing Mason Woods deeply today as he's on vacation. We hope that he is having a great time. We appreciate everybody who's joined us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon, subscribed, rated, and reviewed the show. If you're on Spotify, you go to the show, those 3 little dots right there. You can click on it. You can go add rating and just pop that 5 stars. It's real easy. I would really appreciate it. Let's finish the show up. What else is on my list today? I had preview Alabama against LSU, SEC schedule, 8A announcements, and Josh Pate's power ranking. So that leaves us next with 8A announcements. Before we tell you about 8A, when that is, if you haven't seen it on BamaCentral.com yet, you can find us right here in the Derek Daniels State Farm Studios at 205-758-3391. You can call Derek and his team They'll be happy to walk you through any insurance questions that you have. Derek and his team are on call right upstairs. 205-758-3391. Red Reeds and Victoria will be happy to walk you through any auto insurance, any home insurance, any life insurance needs that you have, questions that you have. If you're thinking about shopping around, they'll be happy to entertain that. Call them at 205-758-3391. Call and see how much Derek can save you today. Right, let's get right back into it on this Friday. Alabama announces the date for A-Day. I think it was April 12th. Yes, perfect. April 12th. Saturday, April 12th. So A-Day is, you all know all the hoopla. We had a little bit of fun with a little bit of a changed up format last season under Kalen DeBoer. I'm going to expect that to continue. Let's fast forward the calendar. April the 12th is the second Saturday in October. So we're going to basically assume that spring practice, that's going to be the culmination of spring practice of 15 days of practice. You're going to assume spring practice is maybe starting March 10, March 17, somewhere in that range. March 17 would probably be my guess. Obviously, that's St. Patrick's Day. Let's find out when Alabama spring break is first, because that's going to give us a real clue. We'll be able to pin you down. University of Alabama academic calendar. Let's find out when spring break actually starts, because last year was one of the not weird, but you... Yeah. November, December, January, March, spring holidays, March 7th to March 16th. Perfect. So going back to our calendar, March 17th is St. Patrick's Day. That's the day they return from spring break. I'm going to bet that is when spring practice is going to get going. Because last year, was it 2 years ago that Nick Saban didn't practice before spring break for the first time ever? I think it was, and then Kalen DeBoer carried that up last year. But she didn't practice before spring break last year. And Kalen DeBoer, so I believe it's going to be basically that first Monday after spring break, the 17th. And so, look, that puts us how many days until March 17th? How many days until March 17? You've only got 52 days away. The offseason's so fast. It's going to fly by so fast. Only 52 days away, and you've got National Signing Day, which I don't really expect to be too dramatic next week. In 2 weeks, really. The first Wednesday in February, so two more weeks away from that. Everything's going to fly by. I know it's been not really the offseason that you were wanting, going into it on a loss with losing the ReliaQuest Bowl. But hang on, we will have spring practice before too long and get this quarterback competition cooking, which I cannot wait for. Really looking forward to the quarterback. And speaking of the quarterback competition, oh my gosh. Who was it today? I'll find it. Because our friend Clint Land commented on it, and everybody and their mother commented on it. Everybody commented on Clint Lamb. Let's see, because who was it that put this out there? Or maybe he deleted his his comment. That's funny. Looks like he might have deleted his comment. The Ty Simpson, Dylan Lonergan. They used Dylan Lonergan in a graphic talking about how good Ty Simpson was going to be. Yeah, right here. Pro Football Focus. And Pro Football Focus deleted it. That's why I wasn't able to find it. Pro Football Focus put out a graphic basically praising Ty Simpson for waiting and saying, he's got the inside track at starting quarterback job, and he does. No argument. No issue. But they put out the graphic using a photo of Dylan Lonergan, who, we miss you. We love you, Dylan Lonergan, but is off at Boston College. So very, very embarrassing look for Pro Football Focus today. We want to finish up the show. We're missing you, Mason Woods. We want to finish up the show. And yes, it is a tighter show today, just largely because we're not on Mason. And I woke up today and I was like, what am I going to talk about? How am I going to do this show? And it was like, oh my gosh, you used to do it by yourself all the time. Mason has made me so comfortable having someone to bounce off of that it really took a little second to get myself on the bicycle today. But we're finishing with Josh Pate's final Josh Pate poll. It is a power rankings. Remember that. It is not a poll. I should have just said power rankings, not poll. Where he serves the power rankings. And the reason we're talking about this is not because Ohio State's number 1 and not because Oregon's number 2, Texas is 3. It's because he's got Alabama at 8. Josh Pate's got Alabama right here at number 8. And, okay, we have to back up and make sure that we recognize that this is a power rankings. And the way that he kind of dials it up is who would win on a neutral field. I don't know, Josh. We just saw a neutral field against the Michigan Wolverines, who you have at 16. Now, obviously, circumstances were at play in that bowl game that wouldn't be at play in a normal game. Just a normal Saturday in October on a neutral field. You got Ohio State 1, Oregon 2, Texas 3, Notre Dame 3, 4, Georgia 5, Penn State 6, Ole Miss 7, Alabama 8, Tennessee 9, South Carolina 10, Clemson 11, Miami 12, SMU 13, Indiana 14, Florida 15, Michigan 16, and so on and so forth. LSU at 22 stands out to me. And so, look, while I recognize, I think we're in a tough spot with Alabama right now because our eyes recognize the star rankings and recruiting rankings that you've brought in over the course of however many years. I mean, you just got to look at the last 5 because that's the group that's on campus right now. And the last 5, the recruiting rankings have been stellar. But you also see everybody who has exited in the transfer portal year after year after year, and the depth eroded on the team. In 2020, probably one of the most talented teams Alabama's ever had, offensively and defensively. I guess the defense was a little bit behind the offense, but that offense was otherworldly. I just wonder now, with the dispersion of talent, yeah, Alabama might be the 8th best team. They might be able to beat Tennessee, South Carolina, Clemson, Miami, SMU, Indiana, Florida, Michigan, Arizona State on a neutral field, but they didn't do it. Of course, the Tennessee game, that's not a neutral field. And they did beat South Carolina at home by 2. Never got a chance to hang out there with your Clemsons or any of these others. I mean, you waxed LSU on the road. So, of course, you should be ahead of them. I don't know. I think the college football is in a weird spot. I mean, you look at Penn State. I think Penn State played about as hard, at least in the postseason when I was watching them closely, about as hard as Alabama. What can you count on? This Josh Pate power rankings is very assumption. Is very. It assumes that you're going to get the best version of Alabama that day, and you're going to get the best version of Alabama for the 60-minute football game for the first and second half, all 4 quarters. And I don't know that you can rely on that anymore. I don't know that you've been able to rely on that since the 2020 season, really. Maybe the 2021 season gets overlooked because you lost it in the national title game. But I think that really Alabama's effort and performance has been wildly inconsistent for at least 2 years, maybe even 3 or 4. At least 2 years, maybe even 3 or 4. And while you can say, you've won so many, and obviously you won an SEC championship game in Coach Saban's final year. You got to the playoffs. The success was still high. Bryce and Will only lost 2 games in their last season. Everything was all hunky-dory. Sure. But how many times, week in and week out, are you playing a team that actually beats you? Now, we saw it this year many more times from a talent standpoint and from a execution and effort and really just performance standpoint. Over the last 4 or 5 years, Alabama has had one of, if not the most talented team week in and week out. And so I think that there was a little bit of a margin for error in the fact that, if we don't play our best game, we're playing Vanderbilt, but we'll be able to smoke them. If we're not playing our best game, we're playing who's who Tech U, but we'll be able to beat them. We got to play our best game for this number one matchup, and we'll get up for it and we'll play well, and everybody will think we're big bad Alabama. But the performances over the last 3 years have just not been what we've been used to under Nick Saban, where week in, week out, joyless murder ball, execution at an all-time high, no stupid mistakes, no dumb penalties. I mean, Alabama, under Coach Saban even, was one of the most penalized teams in the last 4 years. And so, Coach, so we go back. Josh Pate, you've got him at 8. And I think that that's absolutely fair if Alabama plays its best game. And I think that Alabama, on its best day, playing its best game for 60 minutes, might even rival in that top 3. But we didn't see that this year. The inconsistencies were far too often. The mental lapses were frequent throughout the season. I mean, how many dumb penalties do you get at the end of the game? Kendrick Law punches somebody up at the Tennessee game. Like, you got dumb penalty after dumb penalty almost all the time. I mean, look, we love you, Malachi Moore, but the Malachi Moore crash out at Vanderbilt. Like, the team just was the talent level top 10? Yes. Yes, the talent level was top 10. But the standard has just eroded in college football, thanks to the transfer portal, thanks to NIL, really thanks to the transfer portal, really. I don't have an issue with NIL one bit, but really thanks to this transfer portal. How can you really coach a guy as hard as you want to when you're worried about, well, he might leave me tomorrow? I think that there's got to be some semblance of, I don't give a bleep from a coach. I'm just going to coach how I want to. And if you do go in the portal, okay. Probably better off for everybody. But Alabama at 8, I mean, while it feels good to look up and see them at 8, 9-4, sure, they're beating Indiana on a neutral field. They're beating Florida on a neutral field. They're beating SMU on a neutral field. But you're also assuming that Alabama's playing its best game. And that is not a fair assumption, particularly over the final 2 months of the year. You go out to Oklahoma and lay a big old egg. What's to tell me you're not going to lay an egg against any of these teams in the top 25, Josh Pate? And I respect you. I mean, goodness gracious, college football, you're the dude, right? You're the dude. But Alabama, while on paper and talent-wise, probably, yeah, top 10 most talented teams on paper. But the performance, the consistency, it just never matched up through the year. I mean, you got it 1/2 against the Georgia Bulldogs, and you probably had a bit of a strategic advantage, a bit of a schematic advantage over the LSU Tigers. So you did see it pretty consistently in that game. You waxed the LSU Tigers. Just don't know if you saw it consistently through the season to say, yeah, top 10 team they could beat on. I mean, they can, sure, if they play at level 10. But they just didn't play at level 10 hardly at all this year. And so I have a hard time trusting the Alabama Crimson Tide, the 2024 version of the Crimson Tide. Now, that's something that we will look for going forward. He went on to elaborate on one of his recent shows talking about Kalen DeBoer and talking about how good or bad of a job. I think he gave him a C+ for the season. And that's not an unfair grade. Not unfair. I graded him a little bit higher, but he did great. I mean, you grade on the results. You missed the playoffs. That's technically probably should be a fail. And everything that I, give you extra credit for is just kind of behind the scenes knowledge of knowing how much you're holding together. So I think Josh has a pretty fair assessment of the Alabama season. I do. When you see him at 8 in the power rankings, I'm like, I got to talk about that because I think that's a little bit high due to the fact that you couldn't really trust week in and week out. We asked ourselves, Mason and I looked across at each other, which Alabama team is going to show up and how long will that team show up for? Will it be 40 minutes of, joyless murder ball? We're going to be able to run the ball right down your throat because you can't stop quarterback run, LSU. Or will it be just an uphill dogfight like it was at Vanderbilt and Oklahoma and Tennessee and Georgia? I mean, you won that game against Georgia, but still just a huge challenge. I'm kind of a really big challenge against South Florida as well until fourth quarter explosion. Just don't really know what you could have counted on. So I don't know that the talent matched up with the execution and production on the field, thus giving them that number 8 ranking. I felt it was a little high, Josh Pate. Now, obviously, he does that because trust Kalen DeBoer, trust the talent that's in the building. Sure, we'll see how that develops going forward. Obviously, new quarterback competition coming up in 52 days. We just found out 52 days until fall camp gets going, and we cannot wait for it. We'll be covering all of fall camp. Mason Woods will be back to join us, I believe, on Monday. Maybe not. We'll figure it out. I'm going to Atlanta on Monday, so I'm definitely going to give you a show Monday morning, and then probably bounce out of town, and then we will be back on our regular schedule the rest of the week as we get you ready for Alabama and Mississippi State, and Alabama and Georgia on the hardwood side. We will get you a week closer to early sign or to national signing date, and we'll just keep following all the football news. What did you see? Jeremiah Smith and this other receiver, this other Ohio State receiver, are apparently not in the transfer portal. They're not in the transfer portal, but what is this number? What is this silly number that I retweeted earlier? Yes. Okay. Carnell Tate is the other wide receiver. Jeremiah Smith allegedly has a $4.5 million offer, and Carnell Tate has a $1 million offer to enter the transfer portal. I hate it. Is Carnell Tate worth $1 million? Probably. Sure. Whatever. Is Jeremiah Smith worth $4.5 million? Yes. Undoubtedly. But I hate the tampering. The tampering makes my blood boil. The tampering makes me not want to cover the sport. The tampering makes me not want to follow the sport at all. And the reason it's not being stopped is because everybody's doing it. If any of these programs would have the moral authority to no one tamper in our program, no one tamper with anyone. I want to be above reproach. I want to be above reproach. So when they tamper with Billy Freshman, Billy 5-star, I can say, Western Tech University tampered with Billy 5-star. I want to be above reproach so I can call these people out because the tampering is killing the sport. Is Jeremiah Smith worth $4.5 million? Yes, undoubtedly. Is Carnell Tate worth $1 million? Maybe. Should Carnell Tate take it because he's probably going to be in Jeremiah Smith's shadow forever and ever? Maybe. But shouldn't Carnell Tate make that decision on his own? Hey, I like being the number 2, but I think I could be number 1. I'm never going to be able to showcase my skills in the shadow of Jeremiah Smith. I got to go somewhere else. Make that decision on your own. Don't make it over money. Part of me thinks that these tampering offers are just in order to force the Buckeyes' hand to say, hey, do we want to pay these guys $5.5 million? Two players, $5.5 million. And part of it, I think part of it is a ploy. I mean, it's a big game of cat and mouse. Did I really offer Jeremiah Smith $4.5 million to go in the portal? Maybe, maybe not. Ohio State, you don't know. You've got to take me seriously because Jeremiah Smith is that valuable. It's just nasty. It's killing the sport. It makes it unwatchable. I mean, look, make it Ryan Williams. Put yourself, fathers, in the shoes. Make it Ryan Williams. He might go to any other school. Your son fell in love with Ryan Williams. Your son fell in love with Jeremiah Smith. It's absolute hooey. Get them paid. They should be paid. They're bad. They are bad jokers. They can play the sport. They are bad mamma jammas, man. They are awesome. And definitely worth the money. But the tampering is just disgusting. Because how do you build any rapport? How do you maintain any fandom? Look, you guys know I'm a sad, silly Bears fan. I know when my Bears draft somebody, they're going to be under contract for 3 to 4 years, 4 to 5 years. I know if he underperforms, the Bears can trade or cut him. I know if he overperforms, he can hold out and ask for more money from the Bears. Or ask them to trade him, which then would get the Bears compensation for him leaving. This is not professional sports, right? I know it's college. It's not professional sports. But there's got to be some sort of foundation. There has to be some sort of foundation. The foundation is gone in the sport. And so because the foundation is gone, why do I want to go to the stadium and spend my money on a kid who might leave next year? Oh, rah for Billy Freshman, rah for Billy 5-star, and then he leaves. and goes plays for my rival, or goes to play across the country, or goes to play wherever. Doesn't matter. Are you going to have the memories in Jordan-Hare Stadium of Gravedigger all your life? Of course you are if you were there. You can't take that away from him. But are those memories as good today as they were 14 months ago when they happened, roughly? And Isaiah Bond was looking at the number one wide receiver, looking like going to be the number one wide receiver on a Rose Bowl team, not going into the transfer portal. No, Isaiah Bond goes into the portal, goes to Texas, and you think, oh, well, Jalen Milroe threw it to unnamed wide receiver. You see all the jokes, unnamed wide receiver, or Jalen Milroe to Jermaine Burton. They all sub in names. Oh, Jalen Milroe. Oh, that was Ryan Williams. Oh, that was whoever I want to say. It's eroding the sport. That's a key memory. That's a key moment. If you're an Auburn fan, that's a moment that breaks your heart forever, right? No, because now you can say, well, that dude transferred out like 6 weeks later. Just urinated on his Alabama legacy. And I'm saying, man, I hope it goes well for him. I hope it does. Absolutely. But the portal is ruining the foundation of the sport. The tampering, that is. I don't have an issue with the portal. The portal's a necessary evil. But the tampering, I'm going to give you if you jump in the portal. And the fact that the player said, if you don't give me, I'm going to go in the portal. We've talked about punishments. We talked about restrictions before, and we're not going to get into it. You can find all our old shows right there on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon, ways to combat the portal. I have no issue with NIL at all, but you have to combat the tampering of the portal so that you can get the soul of the sport back, really. Because I think, truly, I don't think the fans have any issue with their players getting paid either. You hear sometimes, playing for the name on the front, not the name on the back. These guys used to play for passion, not money. I don't really think that matters. I think that if the player, if the fan knew that Billy Freshman, he's good, he's not going to look, Jalen Mbakwe, I've got a sour taste in my mouth. Of course, you're excited to see him back for a sophomore season, but he played the game with the Alabama fans. He played the game with the Ole Miss fans. He played the game with the coaching staffs. Great. He's in a better position for himself, and ultimately, I guess we're happy about that. But the emotional toll of maybe I'm transferring, maybe I'm not. I want this, I want that. I'm going to transfer. No, I'm not going to transfer. I'm staying home. Just is really, really, really bad for the sport. So, all right, you've heard me talk about it a bunch already, and I didn't even mean to get on this Jeremiah Smith tangent. That's kind of how we went as we closed down. Without Mason, I didn't have anybody to keep me on the rails. I just wanted to talk about the Josh Pate power rankings as Alabama finished at number 8 in his power rankings. The other thing I wanted to mention, my man Everett commenting. I see you still haven't gotten a haircut. No, I have not gotten a haircut. And I appreciate you commenting that you'll tune in more. Absolutely, very appreciative of that. You can be like Everett Osmer and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Leaving us a comment. We'll respond to our comments when we can and as we can. Definitely glad that I saw those. Definitely glad that you watched the show today, Everett. I really appreciate you so much for being a part of the show. No, I haven't got a haircut. I don't know that I'm going to get a haircut until I'm doing a half marathon. Look, we're off the rails anyways at the end of the day. I'm doing a half marathon March 29th, and I'm playing with 2 strategies, either taking just a buzzer and going buzzing it all off, going all the way down to 0, or just not having a haircut and going the old school white man afro curly, because my hair doesn't grow down, it grows up and out. I get that from my father. The curls, we love that. Appreciate that, Dad. And so I'm playing with both those strategies, Everett, to make to tie in your comment on the haircut. No, I have not gotten a haircut. The last haircut that I got was in November. And usually I'm like a every 5th, 6th week type. So I'm definitely running past here on the 7th, 8th, 9th week of the cycle there. And that's A-okay. We're just having fun with it, especially in the cold. Golly, in the cold, I just want to be as bundled up as possible, and the hair is a small part of that. I hope to see you guys in Coleman Coliseum tomorrow. Alabama and LSU, 7:30 If you can't be there, it's going to be on SEC Network. We will talk about it on Monday, win, lose, or draw, right here on the Joe Gaither Show. We want to say thanks to Everett Osmer and everybody who joined us on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, everybody who listened to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon. If you did subscribe, rate, or review the show today, I want to say a personal thank you to you. And I hope you all have a great weekend. We'll talk to you on Monday right here from the Derek Daniels State Farm Studios on the Joe Gaither Show and Bama Central and BamaCentral.com.
Thanks for joining us on today's edition of the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central. Keep up with Joe on all his social media pages at Joe Gaither6. Subscribe, rate, and review the show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and be sure to read us daily at BamaCentral.com.